So we're making some cheese today, some fresh cheese, some fromage maison. Here's what you need. Pause the recording if you want to look at it. So, get yourself a big old pot. It's got to hold 5 liters. Something small won't do. You need yourself a strainer, some cheesecloth, milk, buttermilk, only one of the 3 vinegars and or lemon, a thermometer, a strainer, like a paddle strainer, and a spoon for stirring's not a half bad idea. Get her together, let's get going. So, milk into the pot, all 4 liters. Just the milk. By the way, you'll want a high-fat milk here because fat is the curd. Medium-low to low heat. Mine's a little hot, so I tend to go low. I also leave my milk out on the counter before I start doing this. Let it warm up a little bit. For the milk, it doesn't really matter so much, but for the buttermilk, that's when the culture starts growing, which is what we want. So we're around room temperature and stirring. Lots of stirring. Gotta stir a lot. Matter of fact, you can keep doing it. So measure the temperature after a bit. There we go, 40 something. And more stirring, because that's what you do. Oh, look at that. We're up to 55 something. There we go. Continue along. Some more stirring. Now, at this point, you'll start noticing as it gets close to 80 degrees Celsius, you'll see some bubbles forming around the edge. It's not boiling or anything like that. But when you get those bubbles, you're probably getting pretty close to 80 degrees Celsius. So just give it a little stir around. We'll measure up, and whoa, were we ever. And 80. There we go. Woohoo! So turn off the heat right away. You're done with the heat. And it's time to add the buttermilk. Yum, cultured buttermilk. Now, it's been sitting out at the counter, so it's not going to be entirely liquidy. There is going to be some chunkiness to this, and there's not much you can do about it. And as soon as it hits that warm milk, it's going to get chunkier. You actually see a bloop, bloop, bloop. That's actually cheesy goodness waiting to happen. It's a mesophilic culture ready to take you on a trip to Flavor Town. So once you get all that lovely cultured buttermilk in there, do some stirring around. And don't just do it laterally. I go up and down, really ensure that it's thoroughly mixed. Add my lemon juice. I like to taste the lemon in my way as opposed to vinegar, but either work. Again, vertical stirring and lateral. Do them both. Make sure the cultured buttermilk and the lemon juice are mixed through thoroughly, and then you get the curd and the whey separating. That's what a coagulant does. So at this point, you leave this for 15 minutes. Literally just walk away, you got nothing to do, and then you come back and it's ready to go. You can see it's contracted from the sides a little bit. At that point, you can start ladling her out, but first, put your strainer over a pot, because you're gonna have some whey dripping out of this. The cheesecloth in there, and start ladling her out. Now this will take quite a few ladlefuls. The first 4 or so are really heavily loaded, and after that it thins out. I'm not going to make you watch all of that, but essentially you just keep going till there's no curd left, or very little curd left, not enough to chase inside the pot. That's pretty much it. You should have a big old pot of whey, and then take your cheese curd, and it's going to be draining in that above that little pot. Oh, save this whey for later. Something you can do with it, I'll explain it to you in a minute. Anyway, take your curd. I take mine and put them in the sink and just let it sit here for 15 minutes. Just let her drain away. You can put a pot underneath if you want to save the whey. But again, probably not necessarily, and you'll find out later. So at this point, after the 15 minutes are up, I tie it up together and I take that cheesecloth and I hang it over my tap. Just hook it on the top of the tap and just let it hang. Put it over top of the strainer, and as you can see, the whey is starting to drip out there, and you just leave that for somewhere about half an hour to 45 minutes, depending on whether you want a moister cheese or a little bit drier cheese, and you play around with it. Definitely recommend the strainer just in case your knots come undone. You don't want your cheese going all over your sink and getting ruined. And you could put a bucket underneath, or a pot underneath the strainer again. But again, that small amount of whey you're going to lose ain't going to matter. So after the time's elapsed, you unwrap it, pull it out, and you'll see the cheese isn't nearly as moist as it was when we first left it there. It's drier than ricotta, almost goat cheese in texture. Doesn't taste like goat cheese because it's just pure dairy milk at this point with some cultured buttermilk, the mesophilic feature. Anyway, at this point, I weigh it off, and we got out of that 4 liters or 5 liters of fluid, we got 697 grams. So you add 1 to 2% salt to this, and in this case would have been 7 grams. I start around 1%, maybe a little over 1%, simply because I can always add more, but I can't take it out. And 2% I find is a little too salty for me. I usually end up somewhere around 1.1 to 1.4. Anyway, in this case, I put in 8 grams, and then mixed her up. And just keep mixing her until the salt's thoroughly mixed through. And at that point, you're pretty much done. The cheese just has to, well, kind of ages for about, well, it'll age for more than a day, but give it a day. That cheese, the mesophilic culture will grow a bit more, and the cheese will actually have more of a cheese flavor than it would less of a dairy flavor. And that's it. That's that beautiful looking cheese right there. That is a fresh cheese, a fromage maison. And at this point, all kinds of stuff you can do with it. Have it like this. You can mix it, you cook with it. It doesn't melt like a typical cheese. Again, it's more like a goat cheese. But you can mix almost anything with it. One of my favorite things to do is actually just drizzle it with a little olive oil, salt, pepper, and some walnuts, and have it with crackers and charcuterie. It's really good that way. You can mix anything with it. Dice up some jalapenos, really fine. You get a nice little spicy jalapeno cheese. One of my favorite things is raisins and olives. And that just, oh my God, I love that stuff. So, told you to keep that way because you can use it. Take your 4-liter jug that you emptied, and you're just going to pour that whey in there. That's all you got to do. That whey can be used in any recipe in place of milk, and it's a very low-fat version for it, so it's not a bad idea to keep around. Like you're making a cake, calls for a cup of milk, cup of whey. 1-to-1, works every time, low-fat version. So if you want to bake or use milk or dairy in a recipe and you want to go a little low-fat, this is the way to do it. Actually, dogs love it. You can make a whey shake with it. One of the reasons why I like lemon juice and not vinegar, because, well, lemon juice tastes better to shake than, than vinegar. And, yeah, that's it. Put it in the fridge. Good to go. And that's your fresh cheese. Out of 5 liters of various forms of milk, you got yourself 700 grams of cheese.